everything's so fast. Everyone wants everything so, so fast. And I remind everyone, just like I said at the beginning of the conversation, I think it was divine timing what happened to me. I had to slow down. I had to be intentional. I brought a rhythm of life back to myself. And that wasn't because I was making beans in my Instapot, which I don't have an Instapot, but it's like I want people to really recognize that all of the beauty and the magic actually happens when you slow down. And I know that not everyone can do that, but the recipes in the book are very much in tune with slow living, slow cooking. I want people to just step back and recognize that maybe everything that's really fast is contributing to the stress.
From the Weston A. Price Foundation, welcome to the Wise Traditions podcast for wise traditions in food, farming, and the healing arts. We are your source for scientific knowledge and traditional wisdom to help you achieve optimal health. And now here is our host and producer, Hilda Labrada Gore.
Hey, Hilda here. What if the very herbs and foods that grow in your area have the capacity to heal you? From water to pine needles to the very earth itself. This is episode 553, and our guest today is Felicia Cocotzin Ruiz. Felicia is a curandera, author, and the lead herbalist educator at the Herbal Academy. Today, she invites us to slow down and look around at the healing elements that surround us. These may be things that you are overlooking in our fast-paced world. Felicia describes her own relationship to the earth in today's conversation, along with the elements and how to make the most of what is right under our very noses. Before we get into the conversation, I want to invite you to follow the Wise Traditions podcast on the podcast platform of your choice. Of course, we're available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, Google Play, all the places, but you can also download the podcast app to your iOS or Android device. Just put Wise Traditions Podcast in the search bar and you will find us. Plus, we are on YouTube, so you can listen and watch at the same time at the Weston A. Price on YouTube. So check it out for this podcast and more resources. This is Hilda Labrada Gore, and you're listening to Wise Traditions. Welcome to Wise Traditions, Felicia.
Hi, how are you?
It's good to see you. I'm doing great and so happy we got to connect. I received your book, Earth Medicines, and I was blown away by its beauty and how profound it was. So Felicia, I want to ask you, when was your aha moment? When did you realize that everything you needed for well-being was right here?
Yes. So back in 2009, I actually thought I had an autoimmune disease. It turns out I was actually very stressed out and working far too much. Something triggered inside of me that I needed to be outside. I needed to go into the water. I needed to sleep better. I needed to just reconnect. I really felt like I unplugged and reset and plugged myself back in. And it included everything that was connected to the elements.
So you thought you had an autoimmune condition?
Yes, I was a restaurant owner for many years, and I was going through a divorce at the time. And so I was managing this business by myself. I was working so many hours inside on my feet. I was just wiped out, to be quite frank. I was wiped out and emotionally torn. I think my body didn't know what to do. I felt like I did have a lot of inflammation happening in my body as the result from all of the stress. And the doctors were thinking maybe I had lupus, maybe I had, all these other things. I was being tested. Everything was coming back fine, but something inside of me was like, Felicia, you need to reset your body. And that's what I did.
How did you start? What did you do first?
Oh my goodness. Well, I started by going to the river, which is about 45 minutes from my home. And that really was my first reintroduction, not having a lot of time when I was a restaurant owner. I didn't have time to be hanging out at the river and doing these things. And it was so intentional to put my feet in that water and to just allow the that water. It was absolutely healing. And then from there, I was intentionally sunning outside. I'm trying to think what else I did. It was all with
But
the elements. Yeah.
did you let the restaurant go? Because I'm imagining there are other listeners right now who are like, oh my gosh, I'm totally stressed out.
Yeah.
I know I'm doing all these tests. I'm getting results that I'm fine, but I know I don't feel fine.
Yes.
They can't just quit their day job. What
No.
did you do? Did you still have the restaurant?
I call it now divine timing. At the time, it was extremely painful, but Phoenix was the hardest hit city in the country as far as that Great Recession was, in motion. And so I had to let the restaurant go in 2010. And it was all about that time that I took a step back and really asked myself, how do I want to move forward in life? I was in my late 30s and my body just felt wiped out. I actually feel better now at 53 physically than I did looking back 20 years ago.
And so was that the beginning of your embracing yourself as a curandera? You went from a restaurant owner to a healer.
No, I actually went from a healer to a restaurant owner. Yeah. I actually started my work in traditional healing back when I was 21, I believe. Yeah.
Oh.
So I was already on that path. The way that my journey just unfolded was I have an absolute love for cooking real food. And I had a restaurant with my then ex-partner. And I don't want to shine a bad light on all of the people that have that job, but everyone that I have talked to who is a restaurant owner and they're working, they are making the food. They're not just the owner. It's not this glamorized thing. You are in charge of so many things. And for me at that time, I do look back and think it was divine timing. I don't think I would be here if I hadn't had that reset.
Oh my gosh, that's so beautiful. So do you think in a way then you were kind of avoiding your destiny by being a restaurant owner, or was it just part of your transformation?
It was part. In fact, that's how I got my name of my business now, was that people would go into the restaurant. It was in an old 40s home. I mean, we were busy. It was a great space. And I was already known as a healer in my community. And then people started calling me a kitchen curandera because I was in this kitchen always making all of the home cooked food and things like that. It was just another extension of all of the different things I was doing.
Right, right. Okay, so this brings us to your book, Earth's Medicines. And I love that it's not just a recipe book, Felicia, but there's rituals in there. It's kind of steeped in tradition. How did you know that you wanted to include more than just recipes in this book?
Yes, so I really did take a look in the mirror and recognize that I was kind of putting myself in a box as just simply being known as a person who was cooking with healing foods, when I was actually dipping into my spiritual toolkit. I was really looking into my ancestors for guidance. I really think what happened is when I got that book deal, it allowed me to express all parts of me. And all parts of me, I think, as one of my maestras said, like it was my opportunity to kind of come out of the curandera closet at that time.
That's so funny. Yeah. I've never heard a curandera closet. Why would you be in there in the first place? Come on, just spill all. Tell me what you mean.
Well, I think for a lot of people of the same background as I am, I'm indigenous, I'm a Chicana, Mexican descent. A lot of people would associate curanderas as brujas, as a witch. And I actually don't mind being called that now, but 25 years ago, that really was a derogatory thing. And somehow it got just a bad name. And so I think now it's so beautiful that people that are younger than me, coming out of their own little curandera closet, it's very empowering to say, I'm taking control of my health and the health of my family and my home, and I'm helping my community. And I think that that's something that skipped maybe a generation or two, depending on the people, where their community and their family is, because we had to rely so much on, well, I guess what I'm saying is we had to kind of put it underground. We weren't able to practice these traditional ways without being looked down upon.
Felicia, what do you think are the factors that made it so, looked down upon, I guess I would say?
I would say 100% colonization. I mean,
Yeah.
that's true. I feel that many of our beautiful food ways, our spiritual practices, me not knowing our native language, all of those things
Mm.
were by design. And so many of those things did go underground because we weren't allowed to practice them. And now I think that, time has evolved and people are re-indigenizing. We're claiming those practices and back.
And I think I laughed when you said that because it surprised me. What I thought you were going to say is, we've become so pharmaceutically dependent that anything alternative, which actually should be mainstream, is considered alternative and odd and akin to witchcraft because what God has put on this green earth is healing, but people look at it as strange that we turn to plants instead of pills. That's what I thought you were going to say. So it's interesting that you said colonization.
Yeah, I think though what you just expressed and what I said, it's two peas in a pod. I mean, it's really related.
Right, right. Now, you told me before we started rolling that you felt a connection to your ancestors right from birth. Can you explain what you meant by that?
Yeah, so in my family, we always had an ancestor altar. We would prepare food for our loved ones during Dia de Muertos. We would really go out of our way to make sure, and I'm kind of using my hands here, like that the spirits, that the ones in our family were taken care of and remembered. And so it was always something that was deeply ingrained in how I grew up.
Oh, and you even have some of this information about the rituals related to these altars in your book, Earth's Medicines, right?
Yeah, in Earth Medicines, I just share for people who feel disconnected to their ancestors, or maybe they are just disconnected to their lineage in general. I guess like little, I don't want to use the word tips. I can't think of what I like little like a how to set up an ancestor altar without culturally appropriating another person's lineage. It's just very much wrapped around the four elements and just ways that they can do that so they can feel closer and work with them.
And it seems to me we all have a background. We all have our ancestors that we want to connect to. And probably every culture had traditions and perhaps they've gotten lost. So, what you're inviting people to do is to explore how they could do that and how they can even connect with the elements in the modern world.
Yes, I think that no matter who I talk to, they might not know a grandmother or a mother, an aunt, in their immediate family, but I know, like 100% in my heart, I know that every family has had somebody who was a healer and knew plants and worked with plants and food and the animals and just really was connected. And because of just the modern day that we are in, a lot of those ways have been lost. So it's not just for people that are indigenous to this land like I am that are also reclaiming our ways. It's for everyone who feels that they really could benefit from those ancestral practices.
Well, and I guess that's why you wrote your book, right? You're opening the doors wide. Like, let's explore how we can connect more with nature and the four elements. So tell us what the four elements are. And then I'd like to talk about maybe a recipe and a ritual in each category that especially are meaningful to you.
Yes, I want to first backtrack though, because you said something that really gave me a ping. And that was, I don't share with people how they can connect with nature because I want to remind everyone that we are part of nature. So you're really just learning how to connect with yourself. And I love sharing that with people because it's very empowering when you feel like you are just part of nature. You're not having to go find it. It's just, we're part of it. So I broke the chapters down into water, air, earth, and fire. And I chose to start with water because that's where we begin in our mother's wombs. And water was a very special element for me to work with because I live landlocked here in the Sonoran Desert. And so, like I said earlier, like going to the river was so healing for me. And being in such a huge city, having to drive out, go to the river was really almost like a ritual, actually, like a little ritual.
And so when we can't go, is that why you recommend, I was looking in the book, the hydrosol and the different ways in which you bring the water to you?
Yes, exactly. So I always suggest to everyone, if you can't get out to water, then do your best to find some spring water that's as close to where you live and use that to work with your water in a ritual way, or even to anoint your home with that energy of spring water, like bring that vitality. That would be one way. Yeah.
And what recipe from that water section stands out to you, Felicia?
Well, what everyone shares with me is probably, which is fun because I loved making this one. It's a water medicine, like a agua fresca, but it's
Yes.
made with the cactus pads, the nopal. And so I created a very vibrant green, fresh drink made with basil and lime juice, and it's just really refreshing. It's full of fiber. It's really good for your skin. It's good for your blood sugar, and it's ultra hydrating for your body.
That makes sense because the nopal or the cactus is holding water. It's a place, it's like a little reservoir of water out in deserts, isn't it?
Exactly. It's really cooling. I think a lot of people, I would say maybe like 10 years ago, that started kind of popping up in different places, it's an ancestral food.
Yeah. But where, this is going to sound odd because I know you live in the desert, but I was going to say, where can you get it? Can people like just go and get a little cactus by the side of the road and chop it down? Or how does it work?
I mean, if you know the people where you're chopping it down, I think because it's a drought tolerant plant, I mean, it's going to be doing all right in the desert, but if it's being watered, then it's going to be more hydrating, more fleshy. But honestly, like I have a nopal cactus growing here at my home, but I just go to our Mexican grocer and buy mine there.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense too. Now, what do you think? I have to ask because you are reminding me that we're all a part of nature and we're all connected to it. What do you think of the idea of eating and conducting rituals more locally? What I mean is, I live in a different part of the United States where no nopales, no cacti grow. So, should I be having the nopal drink?
I think it's part of your DNA. If you mentioned you
Yeah.
were of Mexican descent.
Yes.
I think that would make your cells happy. I think it would make your ancestors happy that their way of eating hasn't been forgotten. I'm a big believer in eating as local as possible. However, that's really difficult, at certain times of the year. I'm here in the city. So I really think that when you tap into foods that your ancestors ate, it might not be a very local food because now we live all over the world.
Yes, I think about this a lot because, yeah, some people suggest that the healthiest diet is the local one. And then when I eat an avocado or a banana, I'm so happy. My dad is from Cuba, my mom is from Mexico. So those foods come from those places, closer to the equator and so forth. So naturally, I think you're right. I think they make my cells happy.
They make ourselves happy. And I love also hearing, because I talk about food so much. I love when I have met people that, let's say, were from Sicily and the nopal traveled, back to Italy, and now it's growing all over different parts of the Mediterranean. So even though they're not of Mexican descent, their grandparents have eaten it and their great grandparents have eaten it. So it's like an ancestral food for them in a very different context.
You know what's fascinating? I was talking just this past fall with this amazing man who was saying, you know what? All traditions change with time, which is funny because, we're wise traditions over here. We're all about the ancestral wisdom, but it's not static.
Yes.
It's dynamic. Yes. And so I think that's what I hear you saying when it comes to the nopal and maybe other rituals and traditions as well.
Yeah. I mean, me being a curandera, the practice of being a curandera is called curanderismo. And when I give talks on that, I always share with people that it's a living tradition, which means that, yes, we are practicing holistic ways of keeping ourselves well. However, it's also changing because it began as a survival practice. But now that we have survived many forms of genocide and things and colonization, as I mentioned, we're implementing it in a way that might not look exactly like it did 500 years ago, but it's morphing, it's evolving, it's changing, but it's still rooted in those basic principles.
Coming up, Felicia shares the importance of getting dirty, along with the art of slowing down.
You're listening to the Wise Traditions podcast from the Weston A. Price Foundation. We pause now to recognize our sponsors.
Optimal Carnivore. Organ meats are some of the most nutrient-dense foods on the planet. That said, the founders of Optimal Carnivore understand that it's not always easy to source high-quality organ meats and to prepare and make them tasty. So, they have started sourcing 100% grass-fed organ meats from New Zealand. They freeze-dry the organs and encapsulate them into convenient bovine gelatin capsules. Their products are 100% grass-fed and grass-finished, and free of hormones, pesticides, antibiotics, and GMOs. And since our ancestors would have eaten the whole animal nose to tail, Optimal Carnivore has created a unique blend of 9 different organs in their grass-fed organ complex. It's a powerful combination that includes beef liver, brain, thymus, heart, kidney, spleen, pancreas, lung, and gallbladder. It is a real nose-to-tail solution, and each organ, as you might imagine, has its own unique benefits and nutritional profile, which is preserved through the freeze-drying process. So you get all of the goodness that they have to offer, the vitamins, minerals, proteins, and enzymes. These products can cover your bases, by the way, at home or while you're traveling, or even if you're just trying to acquire a taste for organ meats. And the good news is that Optimal Carnivore plants 1 tree for every product sold, so you get to help the environment along the way. Optimal Carnivore has a grass-fed organ complex, a grass-fed bone marrow product, a grass-fed liver, and brain-nourished product. So go to amazon.com/optimalcarnivore and check out all that they have to offer, and use the code WESTON10 to save 10% on all products. Again, that's amazon.com/optimalcarnivore and the code WESTON10 to save 10% on all products. And Serious Nutrition. You probably already know that I am passionate about ancestral health, but I don't reserve that passion to people only. Our dogs also deserve an ancestral diet, and like us, our 4-legged friends are suffering from the displacing foods of modern commerce, as Dr. Price once warned us. And many of us today struggle with providing the dogs with what they need. Raw diets can be super expensive and cumbersome, and we know that our pups need that primal nutrition. I mean, in the wild, dogs eat organs first, especially liver. Plus, they eat wild grasses, even mineral-rich clay. So it's time to reawaken the wolf within them. How do we get this food into them? Serious Nutrition Primal Puppy has a solution for us. It's a whole food powder with 8 simple ancestral ingredients that you just sprinkle on top of their regular dog food. It has no preservatives, no fillers, just clean whole foods that dogs have been seeking out for thousands of years. It's a simple way to bridge that nutritional gap and to help them thrive. So go to SeriousNutrition.com, and that's Sirius spelled SIRIUS like the dog star, and use the code WISE for $10 off each canister on your first order. Again, that's SeriousNutrition.com, SIRIUS like the dog star, and the code WISE for $10 off each canister on your first order. So check out Serious Nutrition Primal Puppy today. This is Hilda Labrada Gore, and you're listening to Wise Traditions. Let's talk a little bit about Earth. What significance does our connection with the Earth have, and how can rituals and remedies or recipes help move us in that direction?
Yeah, I don't have necessarily a recipe that comes to mind, but what I love to share with people, and I'm sure your listeners are well aware of all of this, is I feel that everyone long ago, we were either barefoot, we were in sandals made of deer hides, we were in fiber shoes. It wasn't until rubber came along that we are not touching the earth or connecting, perhaps is a better way, in the same way. So I love telling my own clients that come to see me that feel like maybe they've lost their foundation, maybe they feel disjointed. I always ask them, when was the last time you walked outside without any shoes? And often they can't remember. So that's one thing that I love to share with people is I love to get dirty. I don't think dirty is a bad thing. I love having dirt on my feet. It means that was a good day, or dirt on my hands was a good day. So to definitely see earth and dirt as this living energy that gets into your body and your
100%. And Zach Bush and others have promoted products that include fulvic acid and other earth elements, a clay that they actually suggest we should ingest. Yes. So when we're trying to stop our 3-year-old from putting their hand to their mouth after they touch the dirt, maybe that's the wrong thing to do. That's what I hear you saying. Touching the earth is good for us at any age and stage.
Yes, when my daughter's now 24, but when she was in, 2, 3 years of age, I would let her go play outside and get dirty. That was so important to me because that's how I grew up, playing outside and getting dirty. And I felt that she actually had a really strong immune system for being around a bunch of toddlers that were her age. A lot of I understand where it comes from, but I think a lot of parents, they're just like, oh, don't get dirty, or, don't get dirty. You just got that new outfit. And I just let her get dirty.
Oh my gosh, I love it so much. Now let's move on to air. Mm-hmm. What's the significance of air in our lives?
Well, it's the element that we have no choice but to have an exchange with every day, right? So we yes. can choose if we want to go step on Mama Earth. We can choose to go to the ocean, to the river. We can't choose whether or not we want to use air or not. It's just happening. And so that said, in my own home, I've always been known to have so many plants in my house, and I grew up with a lot of plants. My dad had a really big green thumb, so we always were growing so many things. I think this is making me remember one time I went to a woman's home who wanted me to bless her home and smudge her home. She was having a lot of sadness in her life. And when I went there and looked around, her whole house was full of plants, but they were all plastic, artificial plants. And that was my first indication that actually could be contributing to her air quality in there. She had all the plants, so visually it looked like she had plants, but they weren't actually filtering the air. They weren't bringing that life to her space.
Wow. Speaking of that, I think in the air section of your book, you had a recipe for pine needle tea. Mm-hmm. Is that right?
Yes. My whole family's from New Mexico. So the piñon tree, it's a very important tree that we use for medicine and so many different things. But I just share how to make pine needle tea. It's really good for respiratory health.
That makes me think of our friends in California who've had a lot of wildfires and so forth. What would you recommend for them when the air that they breathe is thick with smog and soot and ash?
Yeah, that's a great question. When we had that last fire January, one thing that I shared on my social media was just reminding people how simple it is to get a big pasta pot, like a stock pot, and just fill it with water and find whatever type of lung supportive herbs you have, whether they were fresh or dried, and to put them in the pot. So you're working with water and you're working with air, because the steam would release all of the little chemical compounds, let's say from lavender, from rosemary, from thyme, whatever they had access to, and it would permeate the air and would actually not only support their lungs, but it was supporting their mental well-being as, because the air was like scented now with all of these beautiful aromatics.
Yes, I'm sure the other smells in the air
Yeah.
were heightening their cortisol and making them tense and putting them
Yes.
in a different mode, right?
Yes. I mean, I have family that's in California in the LA area. And from what I understand, there's a lot of like plastic in the air now, the plastic molecules and all of the other chemicals. So this would be something that would be at least inside contained in your home, like lung supportive.
And now let's go on to the last element, which I think is fire, right?
Mm-hmm.
Talk to us about fire and our need for it today. Most of us don't even see fire much anymore. I mean, the kind that we actually want, not the kind that was
Yes,
consuming
yes, yes.
some of the land in California.
Yes. Well, I say that in the book that with one little flame, you can have a big space for hope and optimism in your life, lighting a candle for someone, lighting a candle for yourself. And yet it can consume a whole forest. And it's just all about transformation. I think that for me personally in my home, I've never loved really bright lights. I love sunlight. And since I can remember, I love lighting candles just when the sun goes down and seeing my way around the house. I have so many candle holders all over. I'm always picking them up. I love beeswax ones, especially. I love that smell, but I try to
Yes.
use those just so my eye can also see that glowing orange flame at nighttime.
Yes, I've heard tell that there's something about even just watching the fire that gets us back into that parasympathetic
Yeah.
mode. This is why maybe there are profound conversations around campfires and we associate candlelight with romance, like there's something about it.
Yeah.
And even the way the fire or the flame is consuming the wood or the wick, I've heard it's akin to the Fibonacci sequence,
Yes.
which trees have. It's like this sequence in nature that's also healing and important, right?
Yes, I've not heard that one, but I love that idea that that's how it is. And for me, having the candle flickering, it's almost like meditative. If you ever just like, you'll be sitting there with a candle reading and then you look at the candle and all of a sudden you realize you've been staring at the candle flame for, a few minutes. It kind of takes you into a very beautiful, I don't know what the brain wavelength is when that happens, but it takes you to that space.
Oh, that's such a beautiful reminder. And we don't have to have a fireplace. We can just light a little candle wherever we are.
Yes.
And for those who are in the biohacking space, the reason we do red light after the sun goes down is to achieve in our modern world something akin to what our ancestors would have had. They wouldn't have had the bright lights that you were mentioning earlier. They only would have had firelight. Likely. So we're trying to imitate that by wearing blue blockers so everything looks red, or by having red light bulbs in our homes.
Yes, I love that.
So I noticed in that section of the book, you had a recipe for like some ginger fire honey chews. Tell me about that.
Well, I wanted people to not just see the fire in its actual physical form, like we were talking about with the fireplace, campfire, candle, but I also wanted them to think about it in an abstract way, because traditional healing practices around the world, we also work with our digestive fire. We talk about creative fire, passion, things like that. And so I love the flavor of ginger, and I would buy like these ginger chews, especially if I was traveling and you just want to help also with any kind of travel sickness. So I made them with fresh ginger, and they do kind of help with your digestion, but they taste really good too.
Now, do we have to be great cooks to pick up your book, Earth Medicines?
I don't think so. I mean, the thing about the cooking parts, I would say it's cooking in a clay pot, a pot of beans. Like, I don't think I wanted the emphasis to be on working with earth. And so that was working with a clay pot. I think anyone can cook a pot of beans, but what I wanted to share in the book was that I don't want to say this. Everything's so fast. Everyone wants everything so, so fast. And I remind everyone, just like I said at the beginning of the conversation, I think it was divine timing what happened to me. I had to slow down. I had to be intentional. I brought a rhythm of life back to myself. And that wasn't because I was making beans in my Instapot, which I don't have an Instapot, but It's like I want people to really recognize that all of the beauty and the magic actually happens when you slow down. And I know that not everyone can do that, but the recipes in the book are very much in tune with I don't know, slow living, slow cooking. I want people to just step back and recognize that maybe the everything that's really fast is contributing to the stress.
Yeah, that's such a good point. We are on such a treadmill. We are all moving so quickly. It's DoorDash. Notice it's not like door turtle delivery.
Yeah,
It's
right.
DoorDash.
I mean, it's
Everything's
called
so
it's an
fast.
Instapot. It's a pressure cooker. I mean, everything's like fast,
Yes.
hard. And there's something so beautiful about soaking your beans and letting the pot warm up slowly. And maybe it's not for a weekday dinner. Maybe this is something that has to happen on the weekend, but then make triple the amount and have beans for the whole week. And knowing that you are working with the element of earth, it's a beautiful way to introduce that into your life.
And the truth is, for all of our conveniences, tell me what you think of this idea, Felicia, but for all of our conveniences, we're not any healthier. We're not saving time.
No.
If we slow down to make a meal, it would nourish us better than if we just pushed a button and got DoorDash, because we would still be moving at this frenetic pace.
Yes, I love that you brought that up, because I talk about that often about we want everything so fast and yesterday. And there's something absolutely special that I think our children don't experience now. And that's even like having a letter arrive in the mail. It's like magic now to get something that feels from snail mail. But it's like we've taken out all of those beautiful surprise moments. And that also happens in the kitchen with food.
Oh, that's such a beautiful way of putting it. We're allowing the process to be part of our rhythms,
Yes.
I think, right?
It's a big ingredient into our pot of well-being. Yeah.
And when you were mentioning the clay pots, I remember I had a niñera, like a nanny in our family, and she would use the clay pot to soak the beans in for sure. So that was a beautiful tradition in our home.
Yes. Did she? I share in my book that when people soak their beans overnight, and I know some people say, no, don't do it. Some people say it's the way that I was always taught. But I remind them that this bean water that you soaked your beans in, to water your plants with that, because your plants actually will thrive because they love what was left in the bean water.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
No, I don't remember my nanny doing that, but that's a great tip for all of us.
Yeah.
So Felicia, this has been a wonderful conversation. I would say it's even just an introduction to a different way of living in our modern world that's slower paced, more connected with ourselves and with nature and even our ancestors. So I found this amazing. And now I want to ask you the question I love to pose at the end. If the listener could just do one thing and maybe just take one step to improve their health, what would you recommend that they do?
Go to bed earlier. I really do. I see so many clients, and they're just surviving on 6 hours of sleep, and they've convinced themselves that that's all that their body needs. When I see them, they look absolutely depleted, and that's such a wonderful thing to try to just get your body to bed, turn off everything, and really get adequate sleep for your cells to rejuvenate while you're sleeping and wake up, and you look more youthful, you feel more youthful, you just feel good. So that would be, and it's free, I would say, but it does take a little bit of discipline if you're not, what I like to say, an early bird,
Yeah, but yeah, I used to be a night owl, but I've changed. Now I have an early bird certification, which I love, just because I started going to bed earlier. It's not that hard, but it does take some discipline and a little bit of
it might be like an adjustment. Like say, okay, I'm going to start training myself to go to bed half an hour earlier and just see how my body feels. Like don't jump full in and you're in bed, but
and your eyes are wide open.
Yeah, it's going back to what we said about, the light. I wonder how many night owls we had a long time ago, because that would have been expensive to be a night owl. You would have had to burn a lot of candles,
That's right. Oh my gosh, that's such a good point. And automatically when the sun goes down, like everyone starts yawning, but then they turn on the lights and they kind of get a second wind.
Yeah.
So that's such a good point.
Yeah.
Well, Felicia, it has been a joy. Thank you so much for joining us on behalf of the Weston A. Price Foundation. We're grateful.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Hilda.
Our guest today was Felicia Cocotzin Ruiz. Visit her website, kitchencurandera.com, to learn more. And I am Hilda Labrador, the host and producer of this podcast for the Weston A. Price Foundation. You can find me at holistichilda.com. And for the transcript for today's episode, visit our website, westonaprice.org, and click on the podcast page. And now I want to invite you to follow this podcast on the platform of your choice. Remember, we actually also have an app that you can find on your iOS or Android device. Just put Wise Traditions Podcast in the search bar. And then share your favorite episodes with your friends. Share the links from our website or from our YouTube channel. Wherever you can find a show that has meant a lot to you will likely have an impact on your friend or family member as well. And thank you so much for listening, my friend. Stay well, and remember to keep your feet on the ground and your face to the sun.
On behalf of the Weston A. Price Foundation, thanks for listening. We have many free resources to support you on your health journey. Visit westonaprice.org to find podcasts, articles, videos, and more. You can also find a local chapter near you for help in finding sources of great food. We invite you to support the Foundation's mission of education, research, and activism by becoming a member. Thanks again, and take care. Wise Traditions is a project of the Weston A. Price Foundation for wise traditions in food, farming, and the healing arts. The content on this podcast is provided for informational purposes only and is not intended to substitute for the advice provided by your doctor or other healthcare professional. It is not intended to be, nor does it constitute healthcare or medical advice.